Hey YouTube, what's happening? Rainy day. Have to drive really careful. Anyway, quick topic. Listen, you ever realize that women, even when they're not in a relationship with you, they are trying to control you as if they are in a relationship with you? I'm gonna give you two instances in my life where a woman that I was not in a relationship with tried to control me, what I did, who I spoke to, whatever. Anyway, let me start with by saying this. It's not just in the black community, but in also every race has this major problem where women try to control men. And you do have some men who try to control women and who they sleep with and whatever it is. Right? And the thing about it is, nobody should be able to tell anybody who they should and should not have a relationship with, who they should and should not give their bodies to, who they should and should not love and cherish. Now, when I was growing up in Jamaica, I keep telling people this all the time. I tell my co-workers this all the time. We have a lot of white people back home. So white people are not anything new to us. We have a lot of blondes back home. We have a lot of brunettes. We have a lot of, well, we don't have a lot of redheads back home. Or, you know, a lot of pale-skinned white people. But we have a lot of white people back home. You have to remember, Jamaica's history is very rich in terms of, diversity. Like, where were all the slave owners or their descendants going to go? You understand? I mean, even look at South Africa. Why do you think you have a lot of white people in South Africa? A lot of people were born there, raised there. Generations were born and raised there. So, white people aren't just from one continent. Black people aren't just from one continent right now. You understand? We're from all over, which just gets up to prove the Bible anyway. When I was growing up, you have something called coolie in Jamaica. Whenever you're called a coolie in Jamaica, it's a derogatory term for you being mixed. Coolie in Jamaica is a derogatory term for you being mixed in Jamaica. You understand? They had many racial slurs that they would throw at me and my brother and my sisters because especially my sisters whose hair were very long. My mother's whose hair was very long because she wasn't black, or she wasn't in their mindset. She wasn't considered black, right? I can't even give a history of my family because my family is kind of very mixed up in terms of who married who came from where and whatever it is. But, just to start it off, my great-grandmother was a Jew. Alright? My great-grandmother was a Jew. Now, we don't know much because we're still diving into the history of that in terms of, was she one of the Jews that was escaping persecution, etc. We don't really know that. You understand what I'm saying? Anyway, growing up, back to the topic of me growing up. When I was growing up in Jamaica, I came under a lot of discrimination where, some girls, especially the very dark-skinned black women, did not want to talk to me because they were told that I was some kind of mixed breed mongrel. That's what so many girls called me in Jamaica, mongrel, because I was a mixed child. And again, I say it, black racism is very high. It is against a lot of people. Racism comes from every race. So that's why I don't cut out black people. You understand? Black people have racism as well. Anyway, growing up, when I reached a certain age, and my mother, she realized that, you know, certain women were becoming attracted to me, and I was bringing home a lot of girls at the time. Like, you know, these girls were friends at church, and some of them liked me, and some of them I liked, and, you know, we were kind of going on. You know, when you're like in your early teens, this is what's going on. You know, it was very famous for me to bring people to my house, you know, to meet my family, have dinner, or to chill and play video games with me and my best friends from high school. When I got to a certain age, my mother was very particular about whom I dated. You understand? My mother was from a very aristocratic home, and she was not okay with me getting up and dating every single Jane, Anne, Rochelle, Ashley woman that there was out there. There were times she would bring me, you know, somewhere to meet with people and say, these are the types of girls that you are actually supposed to be dating. So basically, she was doing a class thing. But she wasn't just only doing a class thing. She was doing a thing where basically, you know, these were people that honestly, really and truly, if I had dated those women, I probably would have been better off. Because not only were these people well off in terms of, you know, financials, but mentally these people were well off. They basically had their heads screwed on right. You understand? They were not, you know, racially charged. There were times in our neighborhood, because we were like one of the mixed couples that lived on that street. Basically, they would like blame my brother and I and my sisters as well for stuff that happened in the neighborhood. Like if a toy was missing, we would get harassed for it. I didn't even know this until my sister, she basically was talking about it a lot. You know, and there was a time when, you know, my brother and I, we went over to our friend's house and we were playing video games, and we left before the video game went missing. The cartridge was it was a Super Nintendo game, and what happened is that, you know, the mother of the boy who took it, she didn't know that her son had taken it at the time. She pulled me and my brother out of our house, right? And we were long gone before that game went missing, because they were still playing the game when we left, right? She pulled us out of our house and said to us that wherever we stole the game and put it, we needed to go and find it. And we were like saying to her, we don't know what you are talking about. Now, when it turned out that it was her own son that did it, she never apologized for that. She never apologized to my brother and I. She never apologized to my father or my mother. She just never apologized. It was just like her head was still up her ass, as if to say that they could have stolen it anyway. Knowing full well that me and my brother, one of the main reasons why we wouldn't steal something is because if our father had found out we had stolen something, it would have been a dark day on earth for us. Right? Anyway, I know this is kind of steering away from the topic. I mean, it's going into classism and racism. But I mean, I just want you guys to consider some stuff that black people have done to other dark-skinned colored people just because they don't, in their mindset, they don't represent black people. You understand? They're very polarizing in society, and I grew up getting into a lot of fights, not only in what we call in Jamaica primary schools, primary public schools, because we used to go to prep schools, but my father took us out of prep schools because he said that it was just too much money. He doesn't want to do that. But anyway, and prep schools would have been better because prep schools have, you know, kids that basically come from the same background. And anyway, not to move away from the topic, but what was happening is, you know, growing up in Jamaica, I was faced with a lot of racism. You understand? My mother was faced with some racism. When she used to come and pick us up from school, a lot of people would say things like ching chong, ching chong, ching chong, ching, and say, hey, little Chinese woman, you can't see out of your eyes. I don't know how your son can read, and things like that. And even look at it right now, my eyes are still a little bit slit. You know, they're not fully slit, but you can see that basically they look like they're closed, right? If you look at my eyes right now, they look like they're closed, right? And that's just from my ancestry. That's just, you know, my genetics, where I still develop a little bit with these eyes. But anyway, my point is this, is that black people need to shut up about racism, because black people are just as racist as other nations. You understand? Jamaicans are just as racist as the Americans that they claim are racist up here. Right? Anyway, my first instance, like, there's this girl that we grew up together, and I've never ever considered her like a potential girlfriend, because when I think when guys really look at a girl as a friend, we rarely come out of, even if we think that girl is pretty, it's just that we can't even come out of the mindset that, you know, we're just not interested in her in that manner. You know, not sexually, not emotionally. You understand? We're not attracted to her in that manner. So I grew up with this person. Her name is N, right? And N and I basically, you know what I mean? N and I basically became really great friends and things like that up until, you know, my very first engagement. And I think I've told you guys before, my first engagement was to a Japanese woman. You know what I mean? And when I was engaged at the time, you know, I was a very busy person. I was a very busy coach. I was running around. I was doing a lot of things, trying to get my life ready and stuff like that for my wedding, blah, 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 blah. In any case, you know, I used to hang out with this friend like every day, but when I got into a relationship, I couldn't really hang out with her anymore. I would hang out with her like once a week and stuff, and then when my fiance started to get a little bit jealous about it, I was just like, alright, I can't really hang out with her because it's affecting my relationship with my fiance. And it's not like I'm kowtowing to my fiance, but if you're gonna live with someone, this is just common sense, dude. If you're gonna live with someone and you know you can avoid certain things, avoid certain things. Just avoid it. It's just common sense. Avoid certain things. You understand? Certain things I'll tell people to shut up and deal with it. But when I realize I can make the change, I make the change. When I realize that that person needs to make the change, I make that person make the change. Because relationships are definitely about sacrifice. You have to sacrifice. You know, even as the man, you have to sacrifice more. No matter what they tell you, no matter what society tells you, men sacrifice more than women any day of the week. Anyway, it got to a point where, you know, I basically, you know, the hanging out really got to a point where it was low, and she was starting to say, hey, we're not hanging out anymore and stuff like that and whatever it is. And so I basically, you know, I said to her that, you know, I'm kind of trying to get ready for my marriage and stuff like that, and my fiance, she's not really happy with us hanging out. So I don't think it's right that, you know, I hang out with you anymore and stuff like that. So she went into a whole fit about how she was there first, blah, 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 blah. And I said to her, I stopped her in her tracks and I said, listen, I'm not marrying you. And if you were there first and you can be there forever, it really shouldn't matter. You understand? We're not having sex. I don't owe you anything. As a matter of fact, I don't have to be talking to you. So basically, I kind of cut ties with her for a little bit. And then on her birthday, by the way, on her birthday, it was like really a mess. It wasn't her birthday. I went to her. I think her birthday is like a couple days after mine. And I went to her and I was basically saying, hey, happy birthday and stuff like that. She's like, it's not my birthday. You don't even remember my birthday, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, woman, you should be even thankful I came and said happy birthday to you. Or that I even tried to remember saying happy birthday to you and stuff. And she made a whole fit out of it. And then when she made a fit out of it, while she was making a fit out of it, I just walked away from her in the middle of that fit. And then the same night, she was asking me, how is it that I just walked away from her and stuff like that. And I was like, because I don't have to stay there and take anything you have to say. I don't owe you anything. We're not dating. So she's like, but we're friends and whatever it is and we should be. I'm like, you don't control what I do. You don't get to control that. We are just friends. If I pop into your life, I pop into your freaking life. If I pop out of your life, I pop out of your life. You don't get to control if I step in or if I step out. If I talk to you or if I don't talk to you. If I see you, I see you. If I don't see you, I don't see you. And that's how I am. And that's one thing I want to say to you, men, is that basically you must be the type of man where you call the shots in your life. You understand what I'm saying? If a woman wants to call the shots in her life, let her call the shots in her life, but she cannot call the shots for your life. Because she wanted to call the shots for her life and wanted to call the shots for my life at the same time. I don't think so. Anyway, the other thing is that I forgot the other situation. It was on the tip of my tongue. But so the second situation, basically, I was, dating somebody. And this happens a lot with women that I date and we end a relationship. They really like the relationship that we had. And they always want to end up that when they leave, they want to turn it into a friendship. And again, men, the answer is going to be no. Do you understand me, fellas? The answer is no. You have nothing to gain from being friends with an ex. I have never in my relationship life befriended an ex. Because I've always kept it in a manner to say, there's nothing else for me to gain from you. If I can't have all of you, I don't want any of you. And I don't want half of you either. You don't take what they give you. You take what you're supposed to get, young men and old men or anybody that's dating. You take what you are supposed to get in a relationship. You don't take what they are going to, I think that this is what you should get. No. You lay it out on the table. This is why a lot of times when relationships, when I start going out with somebody and it starts to get deep, I start to say, hey, here's the type of relationship that I actually want. Here's the type of relationship that I'm going to give. And it's really important, and I think it's very important that men, this is how you need to start most of the conversations when things start to get hot and heavy and deep with a woman. If you choose to go further than that, you must let that woman know what you are giving and what you're not giving. That way, she can never say that you made her believe. She can never say that she assumed. Because if you lay it out all on the table and say, yo, take it or leave it, and she chooses to take it, then anything, the fallout that happens after that is going to be on her. And that's the thing that you want to be as a man. You want to be held accountable for only the things that you have done wrong and only the things that you have done right. And you want to be able to hold her accountable for the decisions that she's made in your life or in your dealings with her. You understand what I'm saying? I basically I've tried. There are times that I have actually failed. But holding women accountable doesn't always mean getting them to do what is right. Holding women accountable most times mean walking away. Making your stance known and walking away from a woman. There are times when I have an argument, even with my wife, I make my stance known. I tell her that is the end of it, and I walk out of that argument. I never listen to anything else, especially if I know that I am right. You understand? It is no disrespect to my wife, but I make my arguments and statements and stance known, and then I walk out of the argument. Because I am not here to hear anything else. You know, so as men, we want to carefully, you know, think about the situations that we go into. Even if your penis is basically overriding your brain, there must be a time where you're able to sit down and start to, you know, go through your situation and talk about it to yourself and get yourself to, you know, a point where, you know, things need to make sense. Like I said before, women always try to control men, period. Women are always trying to control men. Like, even if you're just a friend of a woman, she's gonna try to control. That's why it's not good for you to be friends with an ex. Because being friends with an ex is her having control over what the relationship between the two of you is. And I've had an ex that tried that before, where she tried to control me as an ex. Like, we broke up and we decided that we were going to be friends because we went to the same church. We had the same friends for over years and years and years. Because she came into my friendship group and they still kept her as a friend. But she tried years upon years to get me to not date certain women. And I had to like tell her to back up. Like, look, we're done. You don't tell me who I get to date and who I don't get to date. And I'm talking like 16, 17, and you have girls that trying to control men. So I hope you guys take this into great consideration, that there are women out there that even if you are just a friend to her, she will try to control where your life goes, who you go out with, and even if you get to have a girlfriend or not. As a man, you must stand on your own, and especially as a Christian man, you must stand on your own with God against these types of things, because God expects you to have a spine. You need to have a spine if you're going to serve God. And I'm going to go into why you need to have a spine to serve God in terms of like going out into ministry and things like that. It's very important that you have a freaking spine, because if you don't have a freaking spine, you're going to be able to be transferred to anything. Anyway, people, enough love and respect. I got to get into work. Take care.